Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our welcome to our Gita session this evening, this Tuesday evening. Happy that you all can join in with me, and we'll share the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. We're on chapter 9, and beginning of the chapter, we're starting a new chapter, and this new chapter is chapter 9. And for those of you that are coming in at a later point, all the classes have been recorded on my YouTube page under Lakshmi Nishringa Das. So if you want to catch up, feel free to do so at your own convenience. So this evening, again, we'll start with chapter 9, pick up there. And chapter 9, chapter 10 are kind of like the heart of the Gita, especially the bhakti section of the Gita. So it's very full, very rich with all kinds of information we'll try to touch on. Try to get through about 10 verses. So as I normally do, I begin with some Sanskrit to put us in the mood of the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is called the most confidential knowledge. And the text 1 reads as follows in Sanskrit. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam tute guyutamam pravaksham yanasuyave Jnanam Vijnanam Sahitam Yaj Gyatva Mokshashe Shubhat. And the translation to that reads as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, says, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So that last part is a very important point for all of us. Relieved of the miseries of material existence. According to the Vedas, there's three miseries appear in three ways. The Adi Atmika, Adi Bodhika, and Adi Daivaka. So Adi Atmika means the miseries, the sufferings that are caused by our body and mind. Adi Bodhika means miseries which come from other living entities, just like many of you have been to my place and been in our backyard, and it's very beautiful, but also it has mosquitoes. So although we can bask in its beauty, there's also these little twinges or pinches of reality that come in the form of mosquito. Jivo jivasya jivanam. That means one living entity is food for the next. So even though we may pretend to be the owner of the property, to the mosquito, we are food. We are nourishment. So Adi Atmika means miseries that come from the mind and the body. Adi Bhotika means like beast. Bhotika means beast, so from other living entities. And Adi Daivaka. And it is stated by the Vedic scriptures that rain and other natural occurrences like that are under the control of the devatas. That means the demigods like Indra. Indra is in charge of lightning, thunder, rain. Surya is in charge of the sunshine, sun. Chandra in charge of the moon. Varuna in charge of water, etc., etc. Vayu in charge of the wind. So all of these different personalities are very exalted, very high up on the scale of human life. And they have increased duration of life, and they have an immense amount of powers. But those powers come from God, from the Supreme. So it's not, something that they have in and of themselves, but it is actually given responsibility. Pretty much like if you have the president of the United States and you have his cabinet, each one of them may be in charge of a particular department of the government, and in that department, they're kind of like the top of the heap, but they're empowered to be in that part of the government by appointment by the president of the United States. So similarly, the devas, the devatas, the demigods are very powerful beings, and they are given their responsibility by the Supreme. So you can use the analogy of the president and his cabinet for the Supreme and the devatas or the demigods who are in charge. So those three miseries are miseries which come from the body and the mind, illnesses, pains, breaks, whatever may happen, mind disturbances, miseries which come from other living entities like mosquitoes and gnats and things like that, and miseries which come from the natural occurrences like hurricanes and storms and tsunamis and cyclones, tornadoes, earthquakes, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all considered in the category of miseries which come from natural disturbances. So Krishna says here in this particular verse, the first verse, he starts out, he says that Arjuna, I'm going to bestow upon you this very secret wisdom, the most confidential knowledge. And I'm doing it because you're qualified. And how are you qualified? You're qualified because you are not envious. So what does that mean? So when Krishna says, I shall explain to you this most confidential knowledge because you are free from envy. Knowing this, you will be liberated from the suffering which is caused by these material miseries, the threefold miseries I just described to you. So what Krishna is talking about here is you're free from envy. Knowing this, you will be liberated. So what does envy mean, in this regard? This is not merely intellectual philosophy. Krishna is saying, I'm going to give you. I'm not going to give you a diploma. But envy means that, one who, the meaning of envy, where is this now? Means, we know what envy means when we see someone in a position that we covet. And also someone who's cynical. That can also mean, someone who is envious, cynical. So free from envy or cynicism. That's what Krishna is saying here, because envy and cynicism and fault finding and, that type of mentality, that is a very negative mindset. And I think I discussed with you last week, psychologists, at least one school of psychology, say that if you were to think positively or to not think negatively, of the two, to not think negatively would be more important, because we really have control of our thought process. We only understand this when we make the attempt to control our thought process. When we do, when we apply intellect, intelligence, which has been purified, then we can see how much control we can actually take of our thoughts. It's not that we're going to negate thoughts. That's not what Krishna is meaning, and that's not what yoga is meant to do. It's not meant to negate thoughts. There are some yoga systems that teach negation of thought. But in general, particularly from the two yoga texts that I'm very familiar with and I've taught and are also accepted as the preeminent yoga texts, and that would be Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and, of course, the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Sri Krishna. It's not about negation. It's not about renunciation. The practice of yoga that we are performing and Krishna is recommending in Bhagavad Gita as the topmost yoga system called bhakti, it's not about renunciation. It's about proper utilization. In other words, we have this human form of life, and with the human form of life comes certain needs and certain necessities, like to eat and to have a partner, a significant other, to bring into the world children. There's all these inborn desires that we have that are not necessarily, you have to negate them. It's just a matter of, in the process of controlling our thoughts, we can see these desires as possibilities for offering to the Supreme Lord, like the eating process, for instance. That in Bhakti Yoga is a very significant process. In other words, we need to eat as human beings. Any species of life needs nourishment, needs sustenance. So it's not a question in the human form of life that you have to renounce eating or renounce sleeping or even renounce sex. What it means is, if you can control your mind, to first have a mindset of gratitude. That's what Bhakti Yoga teaches. Not to negate or suppress thoughts, but to control thoughts so that when you need to eat, you first think, Krishna has given me everything. He's given me the earth where we plant the seed, where we water the seed, where sunshine beats on the seed. All of these things which have been given to us by the Supreme. And the end result is we have plentiful foodstuffs, grains and fruits and vegetables. Sometimes I internally chuckle when people will say to me, "Oh, you're a vegetarian? What do you eat?" And, if you're a vegetarian, do you ever crave meat? And what's your diet like? And then I think of all that's available to us in terms of sustenance, vegetables of all varieties, fruits of all variety, nuts of all varieties, grains, and so many different types of grains, and the beans. All of these things are just loaded with nourishment, nutrients, and they're much more digestible, especially for the human body, the intestinal tract of a human body is more akin to the intestinal tract of a pure vegetarian, like a deer or any animal that only eats vegetables and grains and things like that, doesn't eat meat. They have longer intestines, and that's what the human being has. And the animals that are predatory, they have short intestines, like 40 feet for a human being, 10 to 12 feet for like a tiger. It's because meat is so toxic, especially if it's not digested. It just builds heavy toxins. So it can't really stay in the body very long. It has to be, evacuated very, very quickly. And that's why that kind of animal that lives on a meat diet has the shorter intestine. So it gets processed and out of the body as quickly as possible. So all these things. So it's really, Bhakti is teaching us a mindset, a proper mindset, a mindset of gratitude, a mindset of offering all that we do, all that we have, all the charity that we give, every kind of activity can be seen as, if we cultivate the control of our thoughts through the process of yoga and meditation, can be seen as a proper offering. And once that offering is made, then the cycle is complete. What do I mean by that? I just described the earth, the sun, the rain, the seeds, etc. That's coming to us from the Supreme through the medium of the demigods. So that's part of the cycle. And then part of the cycle is that all, seeds and develops into sprouts and creepers and eventually larger plants that produce the fruits and vegetables and nuts and all that stuff. But the completion of the cycle is that the recognition of where it all came from and the gratitude that we have in knowing that it has come to us, and for our benefit. So when that is there, then that is the completion of the cycle. And that's what makes harmony in the universe. When people do not complete the cycle of humanity, because we are in the human species, the human form of life, which gives us the power of reason and the power to make choice. Animals don't have that, but human beings do have that. So when we are given that responsibility, that's a big responsibility. We're given that responsibility. If we ignore that responsibility, that's when things become out of balance in the universe, when the cycle is not complete. When the cycle is complete in the way I just described, and the word that is used in Sanskrit is yajna, and that means sacrifice. So when we make the proper sacrifice, then that cycle is complete, and that creates a harmonious environment, a harmonious disposition within the universe. So this is, there are universal principles, and yoga is also to teach us, to enlighten us about those universal principles, like the cycle I just described, yajna, sacrifice, etc., in order to have a complete life, a balanced life, a harmonized life. It's described in this day and age, which is the age of Kali. It's kind of like the winter season of universal time. There are 4 different ages. Satya Yuga, which is the best time. People live long periods of life. They have a longer lifespan. They actually have inclination to spiritual philosophy. They're in general in the mode of goodness. That's called Satya Yuga. Then the next, there's a little degeneration due to the influence of time. And instead of all the people having that mindset, only 75% of the people have the mindset of harmony and spirituality and longevity and all that. And then the next cycle is called Dwapara Yuga. And again, there's 50% of the people have those inclinations, have those attributes. So time is a degenerative factor. We can see that in our own bodies. If I look at a picture of me in high school or me in college, I can definitely say there's been some degeneration going on and will continue to go on during the course of my life. So time has that degenerative influence. So as far as the time factor and its degenerative force, it also affects consciousness, the consciousness of humanity in general. So now we're in Kali Yuga, and it's described, it's a rare thing to be spiritual or spiritually inclined. Not only inclined, because a lot of people are spiritually inclined, but to actually live that inclination. It's not enough just to be inclined, but it's actually to act on that inclination. So the amount of population of humanity, something like 8 billion people in the world, and to be spiritually inclined, but to act on that inclination, it's very rare. It's a rare occurrence, especially in the age of Kali. Why? In Kali Yuga, there are so many distractions, and there's a weakness of mind and intelligence where we cannot discern or discriminate between what is good for us, our ultimate goodness, yeah, and what is not. Ultimate goodness requires purified intelligence and to make the determination that if I eat like this, ultimately it's, devoid of sacrifice and, whimsical, eating whatever I want to eat, whenever I want to eat, whatever mindset I eat in. When we do like that, then, it has an effect. It has an effect on consciousness. What it does is it invites tamagun and rajagun, and those are the influences of the material energy that create ignorance and activity, hyperactivity. It's good to be active, but not activity where we live a life of doing only, and not a life of being, experiencing, being in the moment and experiencing all that we have. So this kind of mentality comes when there is ignorance, tamagun. Ignorance means to ignore. We are actually ignoring some very meaningful and significant questions in life, like who am I? What is my purpose in being here? How do I fulfill that purpose, etc.? There's all these questions that a human being is capable of asking. But if we do not ask those questions, and even beyond asking the questions, seeking the answers, and even beyond seeking the answers, once we come in contact with the answers, acting according to those answers, acting according to that guidance. That's the difference between jnana, knowledge. Knowledge means, you have an awareness of something, whatever it may be. And then vijnana means realization. That means when you are acting upon that knowledge. So if we do not do in this age of Kali, the inclination is just not there. The inclination is more towards whimsicality, more towards doing whatever I want, whenever I want, and then having to suffer consequences like we see in people's health. Well, a person may be, in their 20s and 30s, they may be big and strong and, working out and developing their body and all that, but not knowing what effects their lifestyle is having on the internal body, the organs and all that. And then you see cancer, hypertension, diabetes, all of these things are currently rampant amongst society. So many people are suffering from these kinds of things. And this is in part, in a greater degree, this is due to ignorance, that if we develop a lifestyle which is detrimental to our physical, sensory, mental, intellectual, egoistic well-being, if we do not know what is the balance in all of those things, then we cannot be positioned. We do not develop an inclination towards our spirituality, asking, who am I? Am I this body? Is this body the end all and be all of his existence? We don't have the drive or the inclination or even a clue to ask those questions. And even if we do have those moments, we don't know how to pursue how to get the answers. And that, folks, is why we study Bhagavad Gita. We study Bhagavad Gita because Krishna himself has given us all the information, all the knowledge that we need to know in order to adjust our lifestyle, our diet in such a way is that we create a suitable environment, both externally and internally, for spiritual development. It's a really important position. So Krishna says to Arjuna, I'm giving you the most confidential knowledge because Arjuna is qualified. He's neither cynical, he's neither envious. None of these things are there. He doesn't, spiritual truth cannot fully enter a mind that constantly mocks others, belittles others, competes with God. I am the enjoyer. My life and my purpose of life is to try to satisfy every desire that I have, bar none. And forget about God or any compassion or any of those things. So the spiritual truth cannot fully enter a mind that constantly mocks, competes with God, insists on ego supremacy. That means, I am the be all and end all of all existence. The ego or the identity that we assume is as such, where it blocks out God and service or surrender to God. Wayne Dwyer, I believe he was a psychologist, but he certainly was very prolific in terms of writing and lecturing. He says ego means E, edging, G, God, O, out. So our ego fully develops the false ego, the ego that my desires are first and foremost, have a suitable environment when we edge God out of our existence. That becomes ego. So Arjuna is qualified because the Sanskrit word is anasuyave. Arjuna, you are non-envious. You are not an envious person. And you do not mock people, but rather you try to help people. It's easy to belittle a person. It's much harder to control the mind and see the good qualities. Every single person has good qualities. Every single person. But our tendency when we're in the conditioned state of existence is to become adept at seeing the spots on the moon rather than the beauty of the moon. So when we interact with people, it's much easier when the person is doing something we don't particularly like or particularly agree with. We make them, that's all that they are. That's how we see another person. Just we see them as their faults, as their walking faults, whatever it may be little faults or big faults, but we focus in and judge that person based on that. So Krishna is saying, if you have that kind of mentality, or that you're seeing yourself as a competitor to God, then this is called anasuyave. That means envy. And that is not a suitable mindset. So the more envious one is, cynical, or the other synonyms that Krishna uses in this regard, the more one is envious or competitive with God, or ego supremacy, et cetera, the further they get away from even having a desire to know what is my purpose in relationship to the Supreme Person, even to accept that there is a Supreme Person. You can't even look at what is your purpose in relationship to the Supreme Person if if you are the center of your universe. The transformation of mindset that comes from the practice of yoga, and particularly in bhakti yoga, the transformation is, I am not the center of the universe, but God is. Everything revolves around God, the Supreme Person. Ego says everything revolves around me. So as long as we think like that, from an egoistic perspective, we can't understand or even comprehend that there is a higher force, a higher power, a higher intellect, which is governing everything in this world. So, and what does Krishna say at the beginning? At the end of this, he says, liberated from inauspiciousness. The word ashubha is in the last that refers to ignorance, repeated suffering, karmic bondage, fear, spiritual confusion. Krishna promises liberation not merely after death, but it manifests while we are alive through transformation of consciousness. So another thing, when we practice yoga, bhakti yoga in particular, there is a transformation of consciousness. So our life is actually, we can attain a state of moksha, a state of liberation, and even higher than those are prema, a state of pure love for the Supreme and a pure loving relationship with the Supreme while we are here, while we are embodied. So we don't even have to wait for death, that liberation comes at that time. So I'll move on to this verse is just ripe with so much wisdom. So we'll read text 2. This knowledge Krishna is describing, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. It's the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. That's what the first line means. Raja means king. Vidya means knowledge. Then Krishna repeats, Raja, the king of Guyam. Guyam means secrets. It's the secret of all secrets, the king of all secrets, the king of education. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So what is Krishna saying here? King of knowledge. Why? Why is this the king of knowledge? Because the Bhagavad Gita and any knowledge which is emanating from either the Supreme himself or his representative in the form of pure devotee, it answers the deepest questions like, who am I? What is consciousness? What is God? Why do we suffer? What survives death, if anything? Material science explains or focused on mechanisms. Spiritual wisdom explains meaning and identity. So the deepest questions, how does Krishna deal with Arjuna's dilemma? If you remember, in the first chapter, Arjuna is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He asks Krishna, who Krishna is acting as his chariot driver during the conflict. He asks Krishna to bring him between the two armies so he can see who he's going to go up against. He's one of the generals, and who he's going to fight. And when he goes before the army of the opposing army, he sees friends, relatives, teachers, and this brings a whole emotional turmoil within him. How am I going to kill them? I grew up with my cousins. I grew up with my uncles and aunties. I grew up with my teachers, etc. Now I have to face them in battle. So when he had that confusion and ultimately he had like a breakdown in one sense, how does Krishna deal with that? He immediately gives Arjuna his treatment, his therapy, his psychotherapy begins with knowledge. And what is Krishna teaching? So we say the deepest questions. Krishna teaches, who are you? What are you really? And Arjuna is represented. He's like every man. He represents humanity. So who are you? If we don't know who we are, then that will create a lot of confusion on a lot of different fronts if we don't know who we are. And secondly, if we don't know who we are, then we're not going to know purpose. What is our purpose? Even psychologists would say one of the pillars of happiness is purpose, having purpose in your life. And people who don't have purpose, they kind of wander aimlessly, intellectually, mentally, and they don't have a goal. They're not driven at all, and they're not happy. They don't know where they're going. They're like a ship without a rudder. So Krishna, in dealing with Arjuna's difficulty, he gives him wisdom. So the whole second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is enlightening Arjuna to the fact that he's not the body, he's an eternal soul. That's what Krishna focuses in on, making that clear distinction that there are two primary energies in this universe. One is the material energy, the other is the spiritual energy, and both come from God. And that's why they're so powerful. That's why material energy is so powerful that it can put us in a state of bewilderment and illusion. Maya means that which is not. I was at Publix the other day with my son, and the girl's name was the cashier. Her name was Maya. And I said, is that pronounced Maya or Maya? And she said, no, it's Maya. And I said, do you know what Maya means? And she said, no. She says, I am Hispanic. And, that is a name within Hispanic culture, but I don't really know what it means. I said, well, it means that which is not. And she just gave me like the blankest stare you can imagine, like, huh? What does that mean? That which is not. And then I thought, after I spoke with her, I explained it a little bit, but after I spoke with her, I thought I should have also said it means fortress. Maybe that would have made her feel better because her last name was Castillo, and she told me in Spanish that means castle. So, it would have jived with her last name. But I just gave Maya means illusion. And I thought better than saying illusion is saying that which is not. And that kind of put her in a little state of confusion. But anyway, but this knowledge is what we need to answer the questions of life so that we can clearly see what is our purpose in life. And I really like this statement here. Material sciences explain mechanisms, the machinery. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yantra Rudhani Mayaya, that the body is a machine made out of material energy. So in our science, we have the ability to observe, but what are we observing? We're observing the way the world works, the mechanism, the body, the heart pumps blood, all how the machine actually works. And then that's the microcosm. And then how does the macrocosm work? So this knowledge which is coming from science will not give us the answers that we need in order to develop the proper incentive to answer questions like, who am I? Or not even the ability or willingness to ask those questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? What survives death? Is there a soul? All of these different questions that can arise. Science will simply dismiss it because there's no empirical or observable proof of the soul. So therefore, because you can't see it, science is confident that it doesn't exist. But there's a lot of things we can't see. We can't see molecules, but science has developed the proper uh, machinery or tools that you can experience molecules. You can't experience Australia. So, I mean, does that mean molecules don't exist? No. You qualify your vision and you can see molecular structure. You don't see Australia. Maybe you've never been to Australia. I've never been to Australia. So does that mean it does not exist? No. By qualifying our senses, by watching a movie or a documentary or reading a book, we can qualify our mind and our senses and our intellect to understand there is a place called Australia, and it measures this amount. It has this amount of population. Most of the population lives around the coast. Most of the interior is desolate, et cetera, et cetera. We can know a lot about Australia. So, on the other side of this wall, can I see what's on the other side of the wall? No, I can't. But I can experience, once I qualify myself, I go to the other side of the wall, or I look through a window. Then I know, is my dog there or I'm not there? Is it raining or not raining? But if we just say you can't see something, then it doesn't exist, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. So for science to dismiss the soul it's not logical. It means you need a process by which you can qualify yourself to experience the soul. And yoga, bhakti yoga, yoga in general, is a system or a discipline which gives humanity the opportunity to realize, experience its highest potential. That means its spirituality. That's our highest potential is the realization and the experience of our spirituality. And that comes if we are following an effective yoga practice with a qualified teacher, then we can have that experience. We can have the experience of eternality. We can have the experience which comes by the knowledge that we are eternal beings. And because the body dies, doesn't mean we die. People are afraid, they're fearful of death because they don't know what's going to happen. And then we've become so attached, so enamored by what's before us, what we're so used to in the course of our life. We were just totally mystified by that. And the thought that we'll no longer have it, it just strikes fear in the heart. But through an effective a practice of bhakti yoga, you can experience your eternal nature that comes when that fear dissipates. Just like fog. When you're in fog, you cannot see, very much ahead of you, especially if you're in really thick fog. You have to drive very carefully. You can't see ahead of you. But when the sun rises, it dissipates the fog. So knowledge is this sun, and it dissipates the fog. And that's why Krishna emphasizes us becoming knowledgeable about who we are and what is our purpose in life. So Krishna says, king of knowledge, this Bhagavad Gita is the king of knowledge. It's the secret. It won't be revealed to you unless you qualify yourself, the secret of all secrets. It's directly realizable. So when I'm talking about experience, that's what realizable means, realization, that this knowledge becomes your reality. You're living it, and thus you are experiencing it. Authentic spirituality is experiential. Krishna is not asking for blind belief. He doesn't want you to believe in blind. Oh, just accept me and you're saved and you can do anything you want. No, he's not asking for that blindness. He's asking for um, educated consumer, an educated yogi who understands the nature of the self. And one can gradually perceive this nature, this spiritual nature, when certain things manifest. What are those certain things? Inner peace, reduced attachment, increased compassion, divine awareness, freedom from compulsive craving. This is spiritual experience, spiritual empiricism. They, when we connect in yoga, it means connect, to connect. When we link, connect with the Supreme, then the natural effect and the efficacy of that connection, proof of that connection, is these qualities naturally develop within the core of our heart. In Christianity, they say you're touched by the Spirit of Christ. In yoga, which is a universal principle for every religion. In other words, if a Christian wants to describe the manifestation or the reason for the manifestation of these qualities is being touched by the Spirit of Christ, but then there is a process that you must follow according to Christianity that will put you in contact with Christ. That's link. That's union. And there's also a sadhana. There's prayer. There's contemplation. There's reading of the Bible. And the same thing with Islam. To develop those qualities is the mercy or grace of Allah. This is the principle of yoga, connection, linking to the Supreme. And no matter how you address it, what name you will give it, God, Allah, Jehovah, Buddha, Christ, all these different ways, they're just different paths that are leading up the mountain. Now, you may find a path that will get you up that mountain quicker, but none of them will get you anywhere unless you are following yoga, a process, a discipline, which gives you the opportunity to realize your highest potential being that you love and interact with God. That's a highest potential that we can realize in this world. So the principle of yoga transcends religion in the sense that there's no limitation. In religion, they're saying, okay, you can only get to your destination this path and this path only, and everybody else will fall off the side of the mountain. And then the other path will say, well, this path and this path only, and everybody else will fall off the side of the mountain. Yoga says there's many paths. You must follow the path that you have chosen, that you have an inclination for. You must strictly follow that path. And if that path is bona fide, is a real path of connection, then you will develop your love for God. And that's the way my teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, described it. He said it's not a matter of being Christian, Hindu, or Jew. It's a matter of developing your love for God. And if the process, the path that you are following, the result of that, the result of taking that path is you get to the top of the mountain. So the result of following what you are following gets you to love of God, then that's yoga. You've connected. You've linked up. So that's why Krishna emphasizes this method here. So And the next thing Krishna says is joyful to practice. True spiritual life is not meant to be dry repression, just giving up things, giving up parties and giving up friends and giving up this and giving up that. No, that's not. And Bhakti Yoga especially emphasizes what? Devotion, music, wonderful food that has been offered to the Supreme, remembrance, fond, loving remembrance of the activities that the Supreme has performed so that we can remember. Sacred relationships, the relationships you have with your Sangha, people who are similarly on the path. Relationship that you have with your teacher, if you have a teacher, if you find a teacher, that relationship. This is sacred relationship because it goes beyond just friendship, but it actually gives you a guide on the path of realization. Loving consciousness, then there's a development of loving consciousness. So all of these, Krishna is saying, that is what Krishna is saying. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. This is the king of all knowledge, king of all education, king, and it's secret. It's an open secret if you follow the process. So let's move on to text 3. I went long on that because actually there's lots of points to discuss. So even we may not get through all 10 verses today, at least we'll cover these properly. So text 3 reads, those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, cannot link with the Supreme if there's no faith. You have to have faith there is a Supreme, otherwise what are you linking to? You have to have that faith, that initial faith that there is, that the Supreme does exist. Whatever path you're on, you have to accept that the God is the path that you are following to reach and to develop your love for God. So Krishna is saying here, those who are not faithful in this devotional service, in your path, in your process, cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies, name for Arjuna. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. It means you're going to walk a path. You choose. You have the ability to choose your path. And know that path has a destination. So if you choose not to have faith, Krishna is saying, you don't believe in God, you don't want to accept God, okay, you've chosen your path. Where does that path lead? It's a circle. You're walking around that circle and you're coming back to where you started. So samsara means the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, reincarnation. So if that's the path you choose, then know it's circular. You'll start at one point, you'll end up back in that point. You'll start off with a body in the material world, which is full of miseries and suffering, and that path, circle, follow, and there you are again. Whereas the path that you follow in relationship to connecting with the Supreme is a path of liberation. It's like the stairway to heaven, so to speak. So this is what Krishna is saying. He places emphasis on faith. There has to be faith there. What is faith? Not blind belief. That's not what Krishna. Shraddha, which is one of the word that means faith. Shraddha means openness. I remember that was my qualification. It's not that I had faith. There was an openness. Why not? Why can't there be a God? There may not be a God, or there may be a God. That kind of openness where you can, like sometimes people ask me about conspiracy theories, right? Do you believe that there is this deep state, my answer is, it may seem non-committal, but it's true. Can be. Something like that can exist, sure. Humanity has seen, similar kinds of things. So an openness is there a God, a supreme being who's a creator and who's everywhere and he's in the heart? And at least you're at the point where you say, okay, can be. That kind of openness is a manifestation or a display of faith. So openness is there. Trust is there. Willingness to sincerely engage. Without sincerity, spiritual practices remain superficial. Sincerity means that I'm going to be honest. And if someone tells you, chant and be happy, chant and the joy, the spiritual joy that's within the core of your heart will manifest. Possible. Sincere person, an honest person says, we haven't experienced it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's a possibility there. A possibility there. Like sometimes people ask me, what do I have to do in order to be on the path of bhakti? And my response is, do a scientific experiment, hypothesis, and experiment, and then you judge by the results. So if the premise is chant and be happy, okay, so that's the hypothesis. If you engage in chanting, the result of that will be you'll be touched by your realization of your spirituality, which is a truly blissful entity. So that's a possibility. Why not? You cannot deny it because you haven't experienced, you haven't made the experiment to deny it. Scientists won't deny something unless there is, some kind of process that it's gone through. So similarly, faith means you're at least open to the process, especially if you are open to the premise that we are eternal, and then to understand what that means, our eternality. So it's not blind belief. Krishna is not asking for you to believe blindly, but he's asking for openness, a little trust in his words, a sincerity, and then, try and see what you get out of it. Let's read text 4 and 5. We're coming to near the end of our session. We'll read 4 and 5 and then we'll stop here. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And text 5. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to talk about this because I've run out of time and I don't want to, hold you longer. I do appreciate you spending the evening with me like this. It's going to be homework. I would like for you to meditate on the 9th chapter, text 4 and 5. Meditate on it. If you have Prabhupada's Gita, my guru's Gita, he has commentary. Read the commentary, read the verse, read the commentary, and meditate. And then when we start our next class, let's have a discussion. What realizations have you had in relationship to those two verses, text 4 and 5 of the ninth chapter. So are you willing to do that in the course of your week? Have a little meditation on this transcendental subject matter. I got a thumbs up from Jada. Thank you, Jada. And you others, you can think about it. Got another one. Okay. All right. So we got a couple that are willing to take the challenge. Trish says to everyone, thumbs up. Let's do it. Let's do it. There's a thumbs up from Angelica. All right. How about you, Sean? You willing to? All right. Thumbs up from Sean. Yes. All right. So a meditation, a little homework, a little discussion. Next week, we'll start off with 4 and 5. And who do we have there? Rose. Thank you. So we're getting some commitment here to do a little homework in the Bhagavad Gita. So I'll open the floor up to any kinds of questions or comments or any takeaway point, any aha moments that you might have had. I know, Trish, you have some aha moments. Anything you would like to share with us that will help us to understand what we discussed today? Anyone would like to ask anything or say anything? Please feel free to do so.
Okay, can I say something? Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you so much for this beautiful class, as well as the previous ones. But since you said last Tuesday about the greatest thing is not to think positive, but not to think negative.
I said of the two, maybe I wasn't clear. I said of the two, psychology is saying that what you just said, that it's better to not think negatively. If you were to compare, I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't think positively, but it does mean that to not think negatively is really within the realm of possibility for us.
And it's a very hard thing because I've been watching myself and I've been catching myself thinking negative so many times. I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't think negative. It's very, very hard. It's very
No,
hard.
but what's interesting, Rose?
Uh,
You're doing it. You're doing it. And when you do you remember the first time you rode a bicycle?
no, I don't.
I do. I was 4 or 5 years old. My father was with me, and yeah, my father was like a tough guy. So, it was always the process of experience. You got to learn by experience. You know how he taught me to swim to swim, even though he didn't know how to swim. He taught me
the water.
he threw me in the water. That's how he taught me to swim. He said, "All right, now get out of there." And the way he taught me to ride a bike is he put me on the bike, went a little way, and he let me go.
Was still down the hill.
And he kept doing that and it was hard. But then, after a little while, I became like a maniac on a bicycle. So, yeah, but it's very enlivening to hear that you tried, you made that experiment, and that's called swadhyaya in yoga. Swadhyaya means study of sacred texts, which we are doing, but it also means self-study. So what you've done is you've embarked on an experiment to study yourself and particularly your mind and particularly where your mind is going and how your mind is attempting to drag you down.
Thank
And
you.
you were able to do it, right? You were able to pick it. Prabhupada used a very nice analogy. He said, when you come into a room, like I look at my room now, okay? Doesn't look dirty at all. It looks pretty good. But when I pick up a broom and I start cleaning, and all of a sudden I see the pile of dust and sand. You know, we have like in parts of our yard sandy soil, so sand gets in, and then I see, oh my God, that was all in this room. And then what to speak if you start dusting tabletops and things like that. You see actually how dirty it is. So if we get into that, and that only happens when you do it, when you clean the room. So when you study the mind, then you begin to pick up, oh my God, I'm thinking negatively about people. I'm thinking negatively about my job. I'm thinking negatively about my weight or my looks or my hair or
Mhm.
you start picking up on that whole conditioned state of negative thought.
Exactly.
And I think that's what the psychologist was referring to. If you Because sometimes I know with me, I don't know about with you all, but sometimes, I try to think positively and I think, oh, this is artificial, and then my mind rejects it. This is a positive thought. Like, the positive affirmations. I am loved. I am this. I am good looking. I am young and youthful. Hey, and then I go like this. You're not young. You know,
Ah,
you know, you're 76 years old. I mean, you have energy, so that's good. But to pick out the negative thoughts, oh, no, I don't want to go there. I definitely young in spirit. Thank you, Jada. Yes, and that's true, Jada. Young in spirit because we're eternal. So we're eternally young if we tie into that into that nature. But it's good, Rose. That's a really good step to make, to look at that and to kind of, try to and chanting is really an effective way to counteract negativity. Because when your mind, because sometimes your mind gets on a, it's rolling downhill and it's gaining momentum in terms of negative thought. And then what I do is I just start chanting. And the chanting kind of slows down that momentum of negativity. And it brings me, back to a point of transcendence. So thank you, Rose, for sharing that.
sure. Thank you
I appreciate it.
for the clarification.
Mhm. Anyone else like to say anything? Any aha moments? Any takeaway points? Any questions? All welcome.
No,
Yes,
I will tell Rose is the more you practice it, the more you're conscious about it, the other way will come naturally. Like you, one time you're gonna see, oh wow, I mean, all the thoughts are positive and enjoyed and love, and I don't know, it just comes natural. Then if you just keep practicing.
yeah, because
Angelica, thank
if
you. But I always try to think positive. I always do these positive affirmations. It's just moments. Like say my son goes on a bike ride, and like it's taking him a little longer to come back home. And then so I think, oh my God, did he fall? Did he get into an accident? And no, 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 no. He's fine. He's gonna be here soon. Do you know what I'm saying? This kind of negative thought
that's
that I
called
catch myself.
that's called motherhood, Rose. Relax, enjoy it. You're a mother and you have concern for your son, and that's not negative. That's like concern, genuine. But so we have to. That's part of that kind of mindset
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
determine something which is natural as opposed to something which is negative. So a mother, out of her love, feeling concern is not negative. It's not a negative thought. Yeah,
If I didn't think, maybe he got into an accident. No, I'm gonna think, oh, he probably stopped and is talking to a friend.
right,
Then try to
right.
change it to this kind of.
Exactly. Oh, he stopped and he saw the beauty of the beach. I don't know if you live near the beach or something. The beauty of a park or something like that. Yeah, it can be because we don't know, right? you don't know what is causing the delay. So if you want to speculate, you want to guess, just guess that he met some wonderful person. He saw some beautiful sight that caught his attention, or he was thirsty, got some water to drink or something like,
Mhm.
But that's the advantage of observing,
Right.
making the distinction
Right.
and in your thought pattern. That's the advantage. You can you know uh, understand. You can have a clearer understanding. Very
Thank
good. Thank you. Wonderful observation. Anyone else would like to say anything? Any questions or comments? No? All right. Thank you. Thank you for giving me your association this wonderful evening. I hope you all have a happy, healthy, and holy week ahead of you, and we'll see each other. If not, if you're local, maybe at one of the programs, the Thursday night kirtan, or there's 3 programs in our group, our community, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings. If you're not on the chat group for that group, let me know and I can have them add you to it. But so you have 4 opportunities: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you can't do all 4, choose the one you can do or the 2 that you can do, and I hope to see you there. If you're
Oh,
not, yes,
1 minute.
Rose?
Can you please write the homework in the chat for us, please, in the web, either WhatsApp or message?
Okay, so can someone do that for me?
Yeah, it's chapter 4.
Okay, Jada said she'll do it. So it's
Okay.
chapter 9,
Oh, chapter 9. You see?
text 4 and 5.
Okay, chapter 9, text 4 and 4. Okay.
Or
Read those 2 verses and meditate on what that means. Thank you, Jada, for
hey,
volunteering to that.
Lakshmi, maybe we need a WhatsApp group for our Bhagavad Gita study though.
Yeah,
That's a
that would be good. Very good.
that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah, if someone wants to take the initiative to start that, I fully give you my blessings.
And you'll be part of the group, right? You have to solve questions there. You'll be
Yeah.
busy. Oh, awesome. Great idea, Angelica. Do you want to do the group? Do you want me to do it?
There is a WhatsApp group called Gita Wisdom with Lakshmi.
There is.
Ah, see
That's
that?
true. That's true. We never
There
I'm
use
you
not
it
sure
go.
though.
who the administrator is.
Who?
The administrator is my wife.
Oh, okay.
So you could,
I'm not in that group though. I don't know why.
Can we, I wonder if everybody can post stuff there or only administrators. Some groups are closed. I'm not sure. Let me take a look. Let me check.
all right, you guys discuss and let me know what you decide.
Well,
Thanks,
Alright.
Trisha.
can you ask Gokula to add me on that group?
Sure,
Okay.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks. Thanks so much. We'll
Okay.
see you.
Good
Hare
night.
Krishna. Good
Hare
night.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bo. Hari Hari.
Hari.